Hello everybody, I'm Michael and this is Jen.
Hey.
And we own and operate Double E Properties, and we are new build specialists. We own 5 new build 2-story townhouses that we purchased brand new from the builder in Milton. We also own 2 brand new properties in Guelph, Ontario, and this is what we specialize in. We specialize in creating an awesome, great, wonderful product, hands-free product for people who want to do hands-off investing like us and travel and enjoy life and attract really great tenants. So what we're going to do today, we're going to show you around our property, and we're going to basically talk about what we do, how we invest with a couple, and how we've been able to manage and do what we do with a family with 2 little girls. Real estate investing, how this all started for me, back in the day, I had my house. This was 5 years ago. I met Jen, awesome lady.
Damn.
We decided to settle in together, and how it all started with me is I had a decision to make when we moved in together. I was either gonna sell my property that I bought. It was my first bachelor pad when I bought this back in 2007. I could either sell that when we got together to buy our house and buy our own primary residence.
Yep.
Or I could keep it as an asset, put renters into there, and start growing my wealth exponentially, not just by working for an income. So what I decided to do is, I had no experience in rentals. I didn't really know what I was doing. But what I decided to do is keep this as a rental and go out and find a house that was well within our means that we could afford.
Based on one salary.
Based on one salary. That was our criteria. And everybody at the time was putting pressure on us to, go out, sell the townhouse, take the money, buy a house, buy the 3-bedroom house, the 4-bedroom, buy a house of your dreams, buy that big dream home with the new cars in the driveway. But I knew that if I did that, I would always be working for a living. I'd always be just working for a check. And right around that time, I read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, and that was sort of a foundational book that changed my life. So I decided, you know what, let's take this, let's run with it. We didn't have the network back then, we didn't have the education, we didn't have,
we did everything
the clubs.
Based off of Google.
We had to Google all this stuff.
Googled every answer. What's a good tenant? What's a good property? What is a lease?
Yeah. We had an agent. I thought just any agent could do a lease. So we used, obviously, the friend of the family. The lawyer was just a friend of the family.
Yeah.
I didn't know what a power team was, but it was actually like to work with agents that knew investing, that invested in themselves, to have a mortgage broker that actually understood large portfolios and how to actually put your financial picture together in a way that you could present that and access more money. So at the time, our agent, he didn't know anything about the leases to put in. I didn't know about the tenants to find. So my stress level, if there was one time when I was going to quit, it was probably the day of the lease, because we didn't have the proper documents in. They didn't have their insurance. They didn't have the utilities switched in their names.
So just give us the keys, we'll give you money later. And we're like, is that allowed? Can we do that? I feel like that's not right.
And I'm like, am I going to get sued if this goes bad? I don't give them the keys, but then if I give them the keys, they don't have insurance and they hurt themselves, what's going to happen? So it was pretty bad at the beginning, and that was probably the highest stress level I felt in a long time. But you know what, it did come together and it did work. And you know what, a few months later, you fast forward, the tenants, I'm looking at this, and I'm like, I've got a check coming in every month. The property value is starting to go up in the market, and my mortgage is getting paid down. So my whole plan with investing was just to buy maybe 2 properties, have a little bit of passive income coming in, have some money in the bank, and I still plan to work until 65, because that's all I knew. That was just my blueprint. Work hard, save money, that's the only way you'll get ahead. But something in me wanted more. Something in me just wanted to strive and achieve a lot more. And reading the Robert Kiyosaki's book really sort of shifted my mindset. So when you have ideas and when you have a focus, opportunity comes. When you start telling people what you do, deals and situations and opportunities come to you. So I told my friend what I was doing and how I was liking this whole rental business. And in January, this is September of 2013, when we got the first lease going. In January the following year, just a matter of months later, he called me one day and he said, Mike, I've got this opportunity. The builder's releasing properties, and it was Mattman Homes. And back then it was extremely lucrative to get a property, so they'd make everybody line up, take a number, you'd get the number, and you'd have to come back the next day and purchase the house on the spot immediately and sign a binding agreement.
Yeah, it's different than a resale, because what happens is you have to get yourself on an email list. They send a blast email out saying, okay, at 2 o'clock today, everybody has to meet at the Milton Library. And literally as soon as you get that email, you have to book it to wherever they tell you to go. Like half of Milton, you're racing to get to one location. and you get in line, and according to your ticket is when you purchase. So if you're like ticket 500, chances of you purchasing home, 0 to none.
Exactly.
So that's why we're so grateful his friend was in line early for us.
And back then the numbers worked.
Yeah.
And from all I knew was that, hey, you know what, this is working. Like this is working and we're getting ahead, this is what I want to do. So I thought this would just be my last property. So I was like, hey, let's take the opportunity. I called Jen and I'm like, Jen, we gotta go, we gotta get your number, we gotta get in line. And Jen thought it was just absolutely nuts.
That was literally his entire proposal of how to buy a rental property.
Let's do it again.
Hey Jen, you need to go get in line and sign up to purchase a home. And I'm like, why? Why are we buying a house? We have already a house. You have one rental property. Why are we buying another? He's like, don't worry about it. Just go get in line to buy a house. I'm like, no, that's a horrible proposal. And he was like, it's cool. It'll be great.
And it took the house was wait, 370,000 back then, which is, I'd love to get that again in Milton.
Yeah.
It was an incredible deal. We didn't realize how much it would appreciate 5 years later, but that house, we still needed it was 95,000 to close. Jen says, where are we gonna get the money to close? We don't have the money in our bank accounts.
As I'm arguing, as I'm getting in the car though, I'm just saying there was a lot of love and faith in this plan.
But the cool thing was I had equity in my first rental property, so I went there and the whole idea was I sat down with the bank, I could refi that, pull out 95,000 from that, use that as a deposit. I didn't even have the deposit, it was 40,000 down. I used that on credit cards at the time, which people thought it was nuts. Why are you paying, 20%? But I was looking at the big picture. I took my deposit from my first property, the tenants still carried that loan because there's enough cash flow to absorb it. So I bought the second property with virtually none of my own money down. So we did that, we kept going. 6 months later we closed on that property, and now we're getting a little bit smarter with the leases and everything else. Now I got the proper agent in place because I realized, hey, if I'm gonna make mistakes in the first one, I'm gonna correct those mistakes for the second property. And that worked really well. We had a great set of tenants in there, and that closing on the second one, looking at what I did, and that instant equity that we made, the market was already appreciating, we bought it undervalued at the time, that there sparked, and I knew that, hey, you know what, I'm making a lot more money in this, and there's a lot more potential than I ever will at my day job. So then I started to study, I started to learn about it, I started to read books, I started to look at YouTube videos. I still didn't really understand networking back then, but we started to get things in place and align our finances where we could keep doing this. And then we just started to sort of buy another one and then another one after that.
It was kind of a joke. He was always like, we're just gonna get one more.
Just one more.
Just one more. And I'm like, okay, fine, we can do one more. That's okay, I can do one more. And then we'd buy it and he's like, okay, so just actually one more now. We'll just get one more. And it became this joke. Eventually I'm like, how many just one mores are we actually going to own?
And part of the one more was me only believing I could afford one more. Like I remember I didn't have the environment. It's so important to be around people that do more than you and do this actively, because people just, I was getting a lot of pats on the back, but I didn't realize at the time
How crazy look.
we could have actually bought a lot more. We had a lot more potential, but I thought it was crazy that we were already buying a few properties. So at the time, that's all I knew, but I told Jen just one more. Partly that was convincing her too, because I knew deep down I wanted more. And I knew that I'd have to convince her, just say just one more, just so she could get on board.
Also, he's a very smart man, because we had our first daughter at that time, and she was only 3 months old. And you obviously sit down with the bank and they love to do their RESP speech about how you should be thrilled about 7% returns. And so Mike and I were kind of joking. We're like, our first rental property is actually doing way better returns than that. We should buy our 3-month-old baby a house. Ha 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 ha. Then we decided to buy her a house as our RESP plan. And then 18 months later, we have our second daughter, and of course, can't play favoritism, so you have to buy your second daughter a house as well. So that was how I kind of got into the real estate, because I needed a good why this was going to be worth it in the long run. Mm-hmm. And seeing the kids being able to provide them a future and making sure that they're going to have some kind of legacy in the future, I'm always a lot more on board with.
And that's a good point too, because once we had our kids, it started to shift from just wanting to make money to actually creating a legacy. And that's in the beginning I struggled with Jen, because it was more about wanting to accumulate just properties and have doors and the prestige of that. Absolutely. And just make money. But it was far beyond that. And I knew that for me, there came a point when I was spending 60 hours a week as a tradesman doing HVAC, working on the roads, And all I knew at that time, really, before I started real estate, was that if you want to accelerate, you want to make a lot of money, you have to work hard and exert yourself and put in a lot of time. But what I was realizing is that I was trading all my time for just working income, and I was never going to get the lifestyle and see my kids and have that ultimate lifestyle that I really desired if I was always working for somebody else and just getting working income. And reading, more foundational books and reading, going back to Rich Dad Poor Dad, I realized that if you're going to get ahead, if you're going to have wealth, like real wealth, you have to have assets that produce, that not only appreciate in value, but that produce passive income where I don't have to be there. Like our properties now produces checks whether we're there or not, because I'm not trading my time. It's not a service. I'm creating a property. I'm doing that. We're systemizing it where we can basically take our hands off once it's going and just let the property pay itself down, let the checks come in every month as cash flow, and let it appreciate in value. And that changed, that was a game changer for us, because now I can spend time with my girls. Now I still work, but I work, like we're here now filming this during the day because I want to. I no longer really depend on a working check anymore. I work because I still enjoy what I'm doing, but I do things more or less on our terms, on the way we want to do. And that really changes the game for us, because now we look at this, and when we stop chasing money and stop working for a check just out of scarcity to pay our mortgage and pay our bare necessities, my mind shifted to opportunity and potential and abundance. And what can we do with our lives? What can we do to get involved in real estate? Not just so much on the working side.
Yeah, because nobody loves the brick and mortar. Nobody loves the actual house or being a landlord in general. I personally am not always the biggest fan of real estate, like the buildings themselves and the process. However, I love what real estate does for our family. The ability where Mike can take a month off and we can travel to Europe twice a year with the kids and have family time that we can't buy back at the end of the day. Like, we want to live our retirement years now. We don't want to wait till we're 65 and you don't know what life is going to give you then.
No.
We want to enjoy every single second of life, like right now, and real estate is an amazing medium for that.
It does, and you don't have to love real estate, or it's not for us the amount of doors we have or how much we have. It's really the lifestyle you're allowed to live. Because when it comes down to it, real estate, all it is bricks and mortar and just building materials. That's all it is. So I look at it past that and I say, I want to be in real estate, not to create a job in real estate, to do things that I want to do. So it's the advice I give, don't get caught up in so much the actual building itself, the product itself, what's in your portfolio. Look at it as whatever we buy in real estate, every time we deploy money, we always say, what's the trade-off? What's the energy in? What do we get back from this? And how is it going to intentionally change our lives? How is whatever we buy going to align with what we want to achieve? And that's how we look at real estate investing now. And we're starting to live more and more. Like we're having discussions. Our discussions are like, hey, where do we want to travel next? What do we want to do? What activities do you want to pick up? How do I want to develop myself? Yeah. So that's the cool thing. This has really given us the opportunity now. We're talking about, do I want to retire next year or this year, or cash in one of the properties and buy myself multiple years to do things that I want. So we've got so much opportunity with the equity we have in these properties and options that I never had 5 years ago before I owned any assets. So that's one of the things I love now. We're having these conversations that we never did 5 years ago. So we definitely want to keep doing real estate in a way that works for us, that suits our lifestyle. That's real, exactly, that's real to us. Not everybody else who's chasing. It's easy to go to these events and talk to different people and chase shiny objects. There's people succeeding in all assets, in all aspects, and that's one of the things I suffered with too, with shiny objects syndrome when I started networking. You have to do what's authentic and real to you, what works out for you, and what your skill set aligns to, what your time horizon aligns to, what your risk tolerance aligns with. There's many different ways to look at it, and we found something that works for us right now.
Yeah, we specifically pick new builds because of our current lifestyle. We're very open about the fact that this is not going to be our strategy forever. However, when we got started, I was literally out to here pregnant with our first daughter. So we did this pregnant, we did this with newborns, we did this pregnant again with toddlers. So we have a very, very busy family life where Mike still works full-time in construction and I'm a stay-at-home mom. So we were trying to find a strategy that was very hands-off, that was like a turnkey solution, because everybody told us, all your friends, all your family say you can't invest when you have young kids. You have to wait till they're older, But then we sat down and we're like, if we're buying a house when the kids are 10, God only knows what houses prices are gonna be then, and we wanna start doing it now. So we were very, very careful about what strategy we picked, because I didn't want to be going out to different areas with newborns. I couldn't be on top of the trades if I was doing flips and things like that. So we picked new builds because of the tenant profile, because of the very hands-off it is. We're not getting those like 4 o'clock in the morning stereotypical phone calls about toilets and things like that. So it allows us to have our lifestyle, and like we say, we could travel for a month and all these homes are under warranty. So if something goes wrong, we don't actually have to be in the country to deal with them. We don't really ever hear from our tenants. So our tenants have always been absolutely amazing. We've never had a missed payment. So it kind of definitely supports a busy lifestyle with young kids, families who want to still travel. So we were very specific. Like I said, it may not work for everyone or everyone's lifestyle, but for us right now, this is definitely working for us. And like we said, in the future, we're open to doing different strategies when we obviously, kids are in school and I have more free time to go yell at people.
And one of the things that made it available to do this is the fact that we can buy properties, and it's the delayed closing. So these properties take anywhere from a year to a year and a half to close, and some of the ones like this property is delayed up to, it was a 2-year closing. Because there's a delay in closing, the builder typically releases them around 10% under value. So just by me putting money down, we were able to make, just hold that, we were able to make 10%, it worked out like 45 or 50,000 just for signing the paper, we make that in equity. And then typically, I don't like to say speculating, but in that year to year and a half, the property has now gone up in value. So just from closing on it, we're usually ahead, when we ran the numbers and look back, around 100,000 just for closing on the deal. And we would buy these properties as if they cash flowed on the day of, at whatever price we purchased, on the day of prices. We never speculated and said, well, this has to go up $200,000 in 3 years.
Or rent has to be a certain price.
So we can sell it, or rent has to be a certain price. We did it, or anything more was great. If it dropped a little bit, we still had a buffer zone for security. But what I found really interesting is that I didn't necessarily have the numbers to close. I didn't have the deposit on the day of signing for the property, and I didn't necessarily have the numbers that year. Well, we had the deposit.
Because you have to put a deposit down over a 4-month period.
We did, and sometimes even if you borrow that against lines of credit against your properties, it's about accessing resources and utilizing resources. You don't always have to have the money in hand, and even the money, even the ability, the borrowing capacity, sometimes I have to show a little bit more of my income and work harder. But I always say in real estate, it's always risk mitigation for us. A lot has to do with planning. So if I know that I have to show a certain amount a year or the following year, I can work harder, I can come up with that, but I've got that year and a half to plan. The property isn't going to close any sooner than the builder releases it, but it might close later. So by having that year to plan, I had the ability to save up and hit a certain target, and I call it the runway. And that really helped us to buy properties, delay the close, and then close in the future, and that made us available to do it versus just buying it, resale, and closing in 2 to 3 months, which we wouldn't have been able to afford to do. So that gave us the capacity to do that.
Because babies are expensive, people. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
We needed to delay the closings. Every time they told us there was a delayed closing, we're like, oh no. Another month or 2 of savings.
It did push some of our limits, but at the same time, we could also line it up too. We could say, okay, a year and a half from now, I'm going to draw equity. We ran all the numbers. We knew what our mortgage payouts would be. We knew what the prices would be. We knew what mortgage we could access money from. So we had lined that all up in advance. So the properties are basically, we've put very little money into our portfolio of 7 properties ourselves. A lot of that's come from the existing properties with the rental increases and the equity appreciation. So it's been, we're talking about that. If we sat down and bought RSPs for our daughters, RSPs, if we put down 100,000, we get 100,000 RSPs. If we put down 100,000 in this, we're borrowing $500,000. The bank will loan us we own a $500,000 asset in real estate. So that leverageability was able to give us the returns that we wanted, and also the area, the rents have gone up very, very quickly. So with the rents going up, yes, not all of the properties, they do cash flow, they do break even minimally, but we bought them for appreciation. So we're accessing equity from the properties, and the rent was still covering that equity.
That's the truth. Rent always has to cover what we're drawing from the properties.
We don't want to take money, because there's no sense for us to take
We're not
money
putting
out of our pocket, $600 to cover a shortfall, and then jeopardize our lifestyles. We always had to do it and use the disciplines of finding properties that at least carry themselves, and look at it that way.
And we were super lucky. We got into Milton early enough, so we own 5 two-story, 3-bedroom towns in Milton. And then we have 2 3-story, 2-bedroom towns closing in Southern Guelph. So even as we've been doing this for 5 years, now we're even, as much as we're sticking to our new build strategy, we're definitely changing the type of product we're buying. We're trying to attract a different type of clientele, so now we're learning, well then I need to buy a different type of new build product now for that clientele. So you live and you learn, that's the whole point. Every day is completely different. All right guys, thanks so much for following us today. If you guys have any questions about new builds or how to have a business with your spouse or how to do it with young children, we'd love to talk to everybody. We have our website is www.doubleeproperties.ca. You can also contact us on email, which is doubleeproperties@gmail.com. Also, we're now on Instagram, so we're on Instagram as doubleeproperties, and we also have a Facebook page as well. Instagram is a great place to check us out for behind the scenes of how we're doing these properties, what's going on with Double E Properties, what we're making our children do in the business, child labor. So if you want to follow us, we'd love to talk to you guys anytime. Bye.
Take care.